Today is November 29th, 2015. Uh, if you would you state your name?
My name is Josh Rogers.
All right. Before I begin, be advised that this is being recorded and will be in the Florida archives of Florida State Oral History. Do I have your permission to record?
Yes, you do.
Okay. All right. To begin, where are you from?
Well, originally I'm from Baldwin County, Georgia.
Okay. Um, what branch of the service were you with?
The United States Marine Corps.
Why the Marines?
Well, from an early age, I wanted to be part of an elite fighting organization. And the United States Marine Corps is noted around the world as being one of the foremost elite fighting units in the world. And that's why.
So, uh, where were you deployed over there?
Well, I served two 7-month combat deployments. Both were to Iraq. One was originally as part of the surge, and that was in Habbaniyah, Iraq, as well as Karma and the Abu Bali region. We moved around a little bit. And the second one was inside the city of Fallujah, all in the Al-Anbar province.
What units were you with?
I deployed with 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, which is a grunt unit stationed there at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. We deployed over there as part of different regimental combat teams at the time, but deployed as a battalion. So I was with Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, 1st Platoon in particular.
What was your job and mission while over there?
Well, it changed somewhat for both deployments. On the first deployment, it was a lot more kinetic in nature, a lot more gunfights type things. We first and foremost, we had to establish security in the AO. So we would go into areas that were literally controlled by terrorists, meaning AQI, which is Al Qaeda in Iraq, and ultimately had to liquidate threats. So take out, either kill or capture most of the terrorists in the area, and then create a net to where the locals could stand up their own police forces and start policing their own and establish security. We would go into areas where literally the only source of the only governing body, for lack of a better way of putting it, was the terrorists, and we would basically unseat them and prove to the locals that, hey, we were there for them, they could function on their own, and give them the ability to defend themselves after we had pretty much eliminated the threat. So once we would establish a comparative amount of security there, and the locals were standing up their local militias and police forces, then we would transition to other spots that were excuse me, more trouble.
Okay, were you one of those that wanted to go over there, or did you not want to go over there to begin with?
Well, I wanted from an early age to be able to fight for my country, and this was an opportunity to help combat terrorism in the world that we face today, that we were in, and so it afforded me the opportunity to be able to go over there and defend my country, and at the same time help spread democracy to people that had never experienced it before, going from a dictatorship with Saddam Hussein to a country that was basically a theocracy run by radical Islamic extremists. So I was able to give these people, even though they were Muslim, the opportunity to exercise their beliefs and their freedoms the way that they want to. And it was rewarding from that standpoint, seeing basically a fledgling democracy being made out of. So.
Was there anything that happened over there that can still make you laugh out loud today? Is there anything that was, combat's not a funny thing, but our combat deployments aren't known for anything being fun, but was there anything that was memorable that was, something to laugh about today?
Well, you have to be able to laugh in those types of situations, because ultimately a combat deployment in particular such where if you're not finding humor in certain things, you'll lose your mind. But yeah, there were several things that there's humor in a variety of things. Things like people tripping and falling while running to contact with someone, where ultimately it's not a laughing matter, but in the middle of a potentially life or death situation, you're falling out and tripping on something. Or it was the rainy season while we were over there at one point, and the ground's slippery, so everyone would bust it every once in a while. So it was, you could laugh at that. Or crazy guy cutting up in a chem light and pouring the stuff all over him so he glowed in the dark. It was just crazy little things like that.
Do you remember who that was?
It was a guy, we called him Zombie. He was off the chain, crazy dude. But things like that where you have to keep yourself entertained. Because otherwise you'll go internal and just ultimately go crazy. So you have to laugh. You have to be able to laugh at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Little things.
Any close calls?
Well, you're always going to have close calls over there because that's just the nature of it. Every day they're trying to kill you. So you're going to have a plethora of close calls. I mean, there's many close calls.
Can you give an example?
Times like squad patrolling over an IED that just did not detonate. So we were very, very fortunate. Where half the squad patrolled over it before we realized, hey, this thing, is rigged to go. So lots of times there'll be close calls in terms of rounds impacting in walls adjacent to you, and you're skipping along that came within inches of individuals. More rounds coming in close. One time in particular, we were pinned down inside of a house with full automatic fire ripping into the building. You couldn't stand up, or else you'd get cut into. Just things like that.
Where was that at?
That was in Carmel.
Carmel. So, can you describe that situation, or what was the mission like?
Well, we were doing dwell ops at the time. This was toward the tail end of my first deployment, and what happened was we'd gotten back in from all night patrol. We were racking out because we averaged 3 to 5 hours sleep every 24 hours, so not a whole lot of rest. But because we're trying to maintain security in the AO, so got back from patrol. We were racking out, trying to sleep a little bit, and you get woken up to full automatic fire ripping in the house. You couldn't stand up because if you stood up, you're probably going to get cut in two. So, but you had to time it to where you could actually maneuver so you can get your flak on and get your weapons up so you could establish fire superiority and get out of that tight spot. So ultimately, you had to choose to stand up and risk it and hope that the burst wasn't coming in at the same time. And it worked out. Nobody got seriously hurt or anything. But
pretty close.
That was a close call. I mean, had another fella reaching down to get his Nalgene bottle and get shot. And the round went through his ear and into his neck. He survived, but it came within fractions of inches of dying. So, common things like that.
Or it's often not so much about the close calls, but what you have to endure. What would be the toughest thing that you had to endure over there? Examples of what was for you personally some of the toughest things you had to endure?
Right. Well, yeah. As strange as it seems, combat in and of itself is an adrenaline rush, and for most Marines anyway, they're very aggressive in nature because of training and the type of person that most Marines are. Combat in and of itself is not nearly as challenging as putting up with all of the mundane other aspects of a deployment, where, as alluded to earlier, you're going without so much rest for extended periods of time. Is going without showers for 5 weeks, a stretch, drinking water that's as hot as literally bath water, because it's the same temperature as the external temperature. So we're talking 120 degrees in the summer, and having to drink it to stay hydrated. A lot of folks getting IVs on patrols and things because there's no way to keep them adequately hydrated. You're patrolling. My combat lead weighed 110 pounds, so you're strapping that on yourself, and then you're humping around on foot because we mainly did foot mobile patrols. So that was far more challenging than actually being in a gunfight or something, because you're trained for the gunfight. You're ready to do that. Your adrenaline's pumping. You're going, but when you're just having to patrol, for hours and hours, day in and day out, with little sleep, your eyes are constantly stinging. You're not being able to shower. You're giving yourself water bottle baths to try and stay clean. It makes it rough.
You've talked about it before the interview, what you called Operation Dehydration. Could you talk about that?
Right. Well, one of the strategies that the Marine Corps was using at the time would be going out to particularly troublesome areas and doing dwell ops, where you'd take down certain houses, post security there, do patrols from there, and then push on to another area that was adjacent to it. And in the process, you would be sweeping for terror cells as well as weapons caches and such. And we did operations, dehydration is what we called it, where it was basically a 3-day op, and very little sleep. Ran out of water a couple of times. Just complete misery is basically what it was. So but you couldn't stop because, hey, we had objectives we had to meet, and the resupply was limited. So by the time everyone got finished with that, several guys had to be hooked up with IVs while on patrol because they were borderline passing out because of heat exhaustion. So,
where was that at?
That would be just that was adjacent to the Zidon region.
Okay.
In Al-Anbar, in Iraq.
Oh, okay. What was the culture like over there?
The culture is completely different than us. That's one of the major problems that we have in terms of them relating to us and us relating to them. It's a very male-dominated culture. A lot of it stemming from religion, but not uncommon for a family to, one man to have 4 wives. Women have very little rights over there. So, after we had established security in the area, AO would go on security patrols and pass out candy to kids, and the little boys would just sock girls and take their candy if we handed it to them. Very, very, I guess misogynistic would be what you would say. Because of that, they have no concept of democracy. So it's even the grown-ups have no clue in terms of basic things that you take for granted that people understand here in, say, the United States or a lot of the other free world countries. They're foreign concepts to them. Now, hey, there were some good people over there. We met some people that were embracing the opportunity to be able to create a new country for themselves, and really, you can find common ground with people like that. So, but it's a very different culture for sure. Mm-hmm. I have houses that would cost multi-million dollars here in the States to build, palaces basically made out of marble, and then not a few blocks away you'd have a mud hut. So kind of a clash of cultures for sure.
Due to your first-hand experience, is there any message that you would like to better inform the public by your experience?
Lots of times the narrative perpetrated by many people is distorted based upon the goals that they want to achieve and the picture that they want to draw. A classic example, this is on my second deployment. We responded to a potential IED threat in the Iraqi Islamic Party building in the city of Fallujah. Went out there with the dogs, checking for IEDs, couldn't find anything, went back inside the wire, And not 50 minutes after we got back inside the wire, there was an explosion. We immediately rushed out there. No one was hurt, but someone had sabotaged the Iraqi Islamic Party building. And the New York Times, as a matter of fact, reported it as the Marines had allegedly sabotaged that building. Well, the local Fallujah news reported it as it actually had happened. We went out there to try and prevent it, didn't see anything at the time, and then with the first responders to make sure no one got hurt. So again, you see people that'll rush to conclusions sometimes, and they're not understanding that the actual people on the ground are trying their best to make things work over there, both us and them. And just if you're going to help establish democracy in these lands where for so long they've either been ruled by monarchy or a theocracy or a variant thereof, you're going to have to stick with it and be willing to pay the price, because it's worth it in the long run for the people over there.
Is there any story that's come to your mind that you think would be good for public history, or anything that would be a story that's probably funny or anything like that, or memorable?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things, I guess, over there. I mean, that ultimately history won't remember, because it's just, you think of things that history remembers as large events, but it's just basically a compilation of a lot of small events. And I think the main thing that can be drawn upon from this is the fact that democracy is never an easily won thing, and to create a country such as we have, and it requires a lot of extra effort, and it's not something that you can just kind of get a starter kit for. You have to be willing to stick it out and stay the course, and it has to be won repeatedly. And it's not something that's easy, and we've been spoiled in many ways here in the United States because of, one, our comparative serenity from the rest of the problems of the world, and two, because freedom has been bequeathed to us. So
any regrets?
I won't say any regrets. I regret the way in recent years, months, whatever, you can see that many of the places that we fought and died, I've had buddies that died there. A lot of those areas have been retaken by radical Islamic extremists over there, and with the outcoming, I guess, of ISIS. So it's disheartening to see that people can politicize conflicts to the point that they lose focus of the greater good that needs to happen. And I guess that's something that is kind of frustrating when you look back on it. It's not a regret. It's just a regret and lamentable the way that society, I guess, as a whole, tends to be very, very short-minded in terms of what needs to be done.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and I guess that concludes the interview.
All right. Well, thank you. Semper Fi.